Live Daily News. Welcome to Creature Guy Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we are going over a new discovery of a reptile from the Permian period, and as well what's going on with snakes over in Europe, and taking a look at a new dinosaur discovery. Seems like possibly an ankylosaur from the Cretaceous period, and what seems to be going on with hedgehogs over in Europe as well. And we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. So, traveling back in time, Cretaceous period armored dinosaur had double cheek horns. Interesting. This, I guess you could say, is definitely not a typical trait of the horned dinosaurs, the ceratopsians. So, animals such as Torosaurus, Triceratops, even the much earlier relatives like Psittacosaurus. But ankylosaurs, um, I swear this isn't too surprising, but I could be mistaking it for another part of the skull. A new genus and species of ankylosaurine dinosaur has been identified from two specimens found in southeastern China. This is very captivating considering southeastern China is not famous for a wide variety of different lineages of dinosaurs in general. But it does vary depending on what geological location you are finding specimens in. There are different species of dinosaurs that are found in this part of China, but they tend to be a bit more abundant in certain parts of northern China, depending on what geological time and what lineage of dinosaur you're looking at. So let's take a deeper insight. Interesting. So, named Dati yingliangus, the newly discovered dinosaur species roamed Earth during the late Cretaceous epoch, around 96 to 90 million years ago. The ancient beast was a member of Ankylosauridae, a group of armored dinosaurs with a tail club that reached the pinnacle of diversity in the latest Cretaceous period. The ankylosaurs first evolved, it seems, somewhere around 160 million years ago during the Middle Cretaceous. Jurassic period. Technically, their original ancestors first evolved during the beginning of the Jurassic period, around 200 million years ago, which would also give rise to the different species of nodosaurs and the stegosaurs as well. They derived from a very different lineage of ancestors that would give rise to the ceratopsians and the pachycephalosaurs. So, ankylosaurians are the iconic armored dinosaurs that characterized terrestrial vertebrate faunas in the late Cretaceous of Asia and Laramidia, meaning Western North America. The China University of Geosciences paleontologist Lida Xing and colleagues. The earliest members of this clade are known from the early late Cretaceous times of Asia. Um, if you're referring to true members of Ankylosauridae, then this would be true. I was talking about the Theraparians, which would create those three distinct lineages: the Ankylosaurs, the Nodosaurs, and the Stegosaurs. But little consensus has emerged as to how they are related to the anatomically derived and chronologically younger forms. In southeastern China, the Cretaceous red sand beds crop out across basins from Zhejiang to Guangdong provinces. So, let's take a look at a somewhat renowned species of ankylosaur, Euplocephalus. So, Euplocephalus. This is a species of ankylosaur that is closely related to the um, later Ankylosaurus.
Okay,
But
your favorite.
oh yeah, these guys. This almost looks like more of something like a Tarkia or a Xing, Xingtania from Mongolia or northern China. Not so much a Euoplocephalus. Even then, it still doesn't directly look like those specific species, but I'd say it's a bit closer for an AI picture. I guess you could say for Euoplocephalus, this is better, and also being a picture, it's definitely a lot more respect, or I'd say admiration in this case.
There's
But
a
Euop
smiley one.
oh, yeah, this guy. I'd say his club, though it does seem it's a bit turned, seems to be a bit too circular. Euoplocephalus is one of those species of ankylosaurs that is quite renowned for having a very wide tail club, and it's very defined by having two distinct, um, large bony appendages on each side. So this animal reached somewhere around 20 to 24 feet in length, or somewhere around 7.3 meters, and probably weighed somewhere around 2 to 3 tons. So this animal was likely feeding on early species of flowers as well as different species of ferns, and maybe fell down ginkgo or conifer trees occasionally. It's also likely might have roamed in small herds or possibly have been a solitary animal, considering it's quite debatable with different species of ankylosaurs in general. There have been certain fossil preservations of ankylosaurs dying amongst one another, like all being buried at once. So it's very possible Euoplocephalus might have roamed in herds. This is definitely of a much older depiction. This is possibly 1970s, a very tall core for the animal. I do like the tail club though. I think it's a very good looking tail club. It could be wider though. Too thin of a tail, however.
I have a happier one.
There should also only be three clawed fingers. And it's also missing a finger too. Let's see. Oh, right. This model. I can't tell. Maybe it's like mid 2010s, somewhat, but it's not bad for a Euoplocephalus. I think the osteoderms on top of its back, and especially the shoulder blades, could be a bit longer, maybe even slightly more narrow. I think the osteoderms towards the neck region might be a bit too thick or wide in diameter. I think they could be a bit shorter in that region. Oh, yeah. If you look at the back of the skull of this animal, you can notice those two distinct horns sticking out towards the side of its skull. This is not necessarily surprising for different species of ankylosaur, so it's a bit interesting as to how it's mentioned in the article that it makes it out like it's quite surprising, unless there's something else going on with this creature that they discovered. Animals or ankylosaurs like Euoplocephalus, um, Tarkier did have this type of a characteristic, but Euoplocephalus is definitely it's almost a more sort of graceful type of ankylosaur. I'd say even compared to the later Ankylosaurus, which was also simply larger. But these animals, despite maybe having a slightly more slender gait compared to other species, were not quick. They had even though animals like rhinos don't necessarily have very long ankle or shin bones, they are capable of running quite quickly. This doesn't seem to be the case with really any species of ankylosaurs. Maybe when they were younger and they could trot slightly quicker, but as they grew older, they did not have that ability. And for the most part, there really wasn't a need for it. Especially when it came to having to fight off different predators in the region, like the different species of dromaeosaurs or tyrannosaurs. That's why they evolved the armor, for the most part. Okay, let's head back to the article. Oh, okay. This seems to be one from either Jurassic World Evolution, like the game, or maybe something else, but this is very off for a Euoplocephalus, especially the armor looks like the stereotypical armor that you would see for Ankylosaurus back in the 1950s or the 1940s. Also, when it comes to the core of the animal, and the club tail is far too large compared to its body size, and even the bones themselves on each side are just a bit off in their shape. That's not a distinct Ankylosaurus or Euplocephalus sort of morphology. And I'd say the head is a little too Ankylosaurus like. It was very far off. And the tail really shouldn't be pointing towards the ground like certain other depictions. It should be straight, like pretty much aligned with the rest of the body. I mean, the tail may be situated slightly lower, but besides that little difference, it would not be pointed towards the ground. That's also something you would see with earlier Stegosaurus. You could say most herbivorous dinosaur reconstructions. Even the hadrosaurs back in the early 1900s or the duckbill dinosaurs would be reconstructed like that. Not just standing bipedally, but even when on all fours. Okay, so however, the horizons corresponding to the early late Cretaceous stages remain poorly sampled. Two well-preserved immature skeletons of Dictai yingliangus were collected from the Zhoushan Formation in southeastern China. The specimens were found in association with the head of one of them resting on top of that of another and represent slightly different stages of skeletal autogeny. It is the first definitive vertebrate skeleton, let alone that of an armored dinosaur from the Gansu Formation. So this seems to be simply for this part of China. This is a very unique dinosaur, and especially when it comes to the ankylosaur lineage. Which sounds about true. According to the authors, Deitai Yingliangus is unique for having two jugal or uh, quadrijugal horns. The main horn develops in the posterolateral corner of the skull, projecting posterolaterally. The smaller accessory horn sits just anterior to this and obscures the jaw joint from lateral view. Morphologically, it is intermediate between the chronologically older ankylosaurids from Asia, specifically Crichtonpelta and Hyenpelta, and derived post-Cenomanian ankylosaurines like Pinacosaurus. Yeah, Pinacosaurus is definitely the more renowned of these three species. This is probably after around 74 to 73 million years ago is when these separate species that they just mentioned would evolve over in Asia. So none of these Euoplocephalus, I'm not sure if I mentioned, but lived over in Alberta, Canada, as well as Montana around 76 million years ago. So these would have been after, or they would have evolved after Euoplocephalus went extinct, most likely. So phylogenetic analyses broadly corroborate this assessment. Corroborate? Okay. Um, also, let's bring up one of Euoplocephalus's rivals. So Gorgosaurus, Gor, or no, just Go. So this is a medium-sized species of Tyrannosaur. Ooh, yeah, this is a really good drawing. And what is interesting is that they added feathers to the full-grown adults, which is interesting. It's very likely that their chicks would have had feathers, but when it comes to full-grown Gorgosaurus individuals, we don't have any evidence to suggest that they did have feathers, but it is certainly possible as adults. Now, Gorgosaurus also lived in Alberta, Canada around 76 million years ago. And it's been found specifically in the Dinosaur Park Formation over in that specific province, as well as with Euoplocephalus. There were also different species of horned dinosaurs that coexisted with Gorgosaurus and Euoplocephalus, such as Pachyrhinosaurus and even Styracosaurus. Also, a wide variety of different species of hadrosaurs or duckbill dinosaurs like Parasaurolophus. Now,
He has feathers.
oh yeah, he's it's a weird arrangement. It still looks decent. I'd say this Gorgosaurus, the I guess artist definitely added quite a bit of muscle to this Tyrannosaur, especially like along the legs. I'd say even giving him a bit of a slight robust tail and core. Even his arms are quite stocky. That's like almost T-Rex stockiness. Gorgosaurus is it's aligned with a group of tyrannosaurs that are almost seen as like the some might view them as like the cheetahs of the Cretaceous. I think a cougar would probably be better for a more comparable sort of like niche to an extent, at least physically for the late Cretaceous period. They were the top predators of the ecosystems that they inhabited back in late Cretaceous Alberta.
There's a blue one.
Yeah, so this is from the 2013 movie Walking with Dinosaurs, which, putting aside the somewhat goofy story, it had great dinosaurs in general. I think also like the Gorgosaurus was probably one of the best models in the movie. And this animal could reach a length of about 30 feet or pushing 9 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 2.5 tons. So it was definitely a much smaller species of tyrannosaurs, especially when it came to weight compared to um, certain previous species of tyrannosaurs over in Asia and then later tyrannosaurs as well, even in North America,
Why do these look like toys?
because they are. It's
Oh, okay.
just,
I didn't realize. I didn't even see that part.
yeah, I wonder if that's supposed to replicate that Gorgosaurus, and that's an Allosaurus from. I've seen it. I don't know who it belongs to. It's not a movie. It's just um yeah, anyway, I'd say that Allosaurus, especially for Gillis, that specific species, and Gorgosaurus were close to around the same size. Yet Gorgosaurus was a bit more robustly built compared to Allosaurus. And really what would help, especially if Allosaurus and Gorgosaurus got into a fight, is that the Allosaurus would have to rely on its arms a bit more, considering it doesn't have very strong bite force. It's really just better at creating a bit of blood loss on the animal. And Gorgosaurus is a bit better evolved for going in and actually crushing the animal to an extent. Maybe not to the same point as maybe just Spletosaurus, which is a larger species of Tyrannosaur that would evolve slightly later in time, or even Albertosaurus to an extent. But yeah, I think that Gorgosaurus might take out the Allosaurus. So let's see what's going on here. So, I think my ship says Gorgosaurus would occasionally feed on the armored Ankylosaur Euoplocephalus, but that would be risky. Ankylosaurus is one of the most heavily armored dinosaurs to evolve, and a hit from the club tail on the shin bone of the Gorgosaurus would possibly cause a fatal injury, or at least knocking off the ability to hunt. And that is if the pack would take care of it for the rest of its life. Certainly is possible. Let's see. The new species either falls in the grade of Asian ankylosaurines, proximal to the lineages of derived taxa, or forms a sister lineage to Pinacosaurus. Okay, well, that's good to hear. Pinacosaurus is definitely smaller compared to ankylosaurs like Euoplocephalus. Think only reaching somewhere around 17 to 18 feet in length. They're pushing somewhere around 5.3 meters and probably weighed somewhere around 1.5 to 2 tons. Based on these insights, the Datae genus makes a significant addition to the early late Cretaceous vertebrate fauna from southeastern China and highlights the future potential in this region for improved understanding of the origin and early evolution of ankylosaurines. So I'm guessing, yeah, this specific genus, states high specifically, is helping, or it's going to give us a bigger or broader depth into like how specifically Ankylosauridae would evolve. Not necessarily the early Ankylosauromorphs themselves. They had already evolved earlier into the Cretaceous as well as the late Jurassic. Okay, well, this is good to see. Let's head forward in time to another part of the world. So, from theguardian.com, hope for hedgehogs as numbers in Britain's town show signs of recovery. Well, this is really good to hear. There are several different species of hedgehog around the world. I believe some around 16 to 20 different species. You have different species inhabiting different parts of the Arabian Peninsula, northern Africa, that or even southern sub-Saharan Africa. They are true desert hedgehogs. They do very well in the desert. Survey reveals dramatic difference between states of urban and country populations, with rural numbers continuing to plummet. What is also odd is that in somehow in Japan, the hedgehog became a huge thing. It's not native to Japan, so it can
Neither
cause
are
ecolo
raccoons.
oh, yeah, them too as well. I guess they're a big thing as too. Maybe not as big as they were back in the 1970s, at least in a positive way, but, both of them have caused ecological issues in Japan. Raccoons have pretty much invaded almost all of Eurasia and, yeah, have caused their issues. Well, the countries that they invaded issues. They're doing okay. So let's see. Hedgehog foraging in Wiltshire. Hedgehog highways through gardens have boosted numbers after the population fell from 30 million in the 1950s to 100 million. We knew this? Uh, wow. Okay, so I didn't read this. So survey reveals dramatic difference between state of urban and country populations, with rural numbers continuing to plummet. Odd. I know there have been recent floods and droughts over in England, but it's not necessarily surprising. That's been occurring in the country for thousands of years. Let's see. So, Britain's urban hedgehogs are showing signs of recovery, according to a new report, but rural populations have fallen by as much as 75%. That is not good. What on earth? In some regions, in just 20 years. My gosh, millions of them, and they just perished. Were they being, like, heavily poisoned or, um let's keep going. The charismatic prickly creature voted the UK's favorite mammal in 2016. Has experienced a dramatic fall in numbers since the turn of the millennium due to loss of habitat, attacks by dogs, vanishing prey, and being killed by traffic. However, new analysis of hedgehog surveys has revealed a stark distinction between the fortunes of the town and country hedgehog, with clear signs the urban population has stabilized and may even be on the up. Counting the nocturnal mammal is difficult, with the total UK population believed to be about 879,000 in 2018. Wow, that is just a huge loss. They are now listed as vulnerable to extinction in Britain's red list for mammals and are the subject of significant conservation efforts. Vulnerable. Uh, yeah, I'd say that's just right under stable in quote or least concern. So, I don't know. I would kind of put these guys on endangered considering they just went from supposedly 30 million to 879,000. Now, granted, it's just 2018. We don't know what happened or what has happened since.
Or if they were all hiding.
Yeah, maybe they were just racing each other for a long period in some secret location, but I don't think they want to paint themselves blue and yellow or white with campaigns to create hedgehog highways. Okay, now they want to race on above ground to connect habitats and more than 100,000 hedgehog champions. Now he doesn't feel unique anymore. The State of Britain's Hedgehogs 2022 report, produced by the People's Trust for Endangered Species and the British Hedgehog Preservation Society, brings together data from 5 ongoing surveys, with the two urban counts showing an upward trend and an estimated 200,000 to 250,000 hedgehogs in suburban and inner city green spaces. Um, well, that's specific. Where's that occurring? There are several cities and towns in England. Um,
Oh,
hmm.
yeah.
We've known for a long time there has been a historic decline in hedgehogs, but the report highlights the difference between urban and rural populations, said Vay Bass. Um,
Maybe the cities are hedgehog cities, so
um,
they don't need
maybe.
to say what they are
Yeah,
because everybody knows.
I guess they're sanctuary cities for hedgehogs. Head of the BHPS. This is one of the hedgehog things. The rural populations are continuing to plummet. They've been declining by 30% to 75% across different areas of the countryside since the year 2000. In contrast, the urban hedgehog seems to have stabilized and might even be starting to recover after having previously also been in free fall. So that's a glimmer of hope. The outlook for rural hedgehogs remains bleak, according to the report. While the East Midlands, okay, here we go. Finally, some a bit more specific where in England. While the East Midlands and east of England are home to some of the country's largest population densities, they also have experienced significant declines, falling 74% and 35% respectively since 1994. In the last decade, the loss has been a third and a quarter of their respective hedgehog populations.
Maybe people are just grabbing them to turn them into pets.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. The mammals, which have been in Britain for at least half a million years, are primarily threatened by habitat loss and the accompanying lack of prey, such as beetles and earthworms. Conservationists are trying to better understand the declines in the countryside and are working with farmers to help them better manage their land for the animals. I think the problem is with some instances is that certain laws in England are so strict, especially for animals like the badger, and you you have to be extremely careful when dealing with those specific creatures. Same thing for even otters in the area. It's not that I hate the animals, but it can make things really challenging when it comes to wanting to care about them. So, or I guess preserve habitat for them. Hugh Warwick Hugh Warwick, an ecologist who is leading a national campaign to make hedgehog highways a legal requirement on new housing developments, said we've got a slight uptick in urban populations. That's really exciting, but we must be cautious. It's got to be put in the context of a massively degraded situation already. Um, Yeah, it's true. I think it only mentioned a couple areas, though, apparently in England where there seems to be a bit of an uptick. I think what I was trying to say earlier with the badgers, not necessarily that not wanting to preserve habitat. I think it's just like, let's say, limiting hunting or culling of them.
You want to
Because
limit it,
what?
the hunting of the badgers.
No. Well, it's just like, let's say if they had a very low population, then yes, but they don't. And they cause quite a bit of havoc for different farmers. I'd say all farmers across England.
So, how does that affect the hedgehog?
They're eating the hedgehogs.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a bit of an issue too. Um, okay, that actually wasn't hitting me originally. So where were we? To help the animals' recovery, Warwick encourages gardeners to embrace messier gardens. We must get rid of the cult of tidiness. Huh? It's an absurd cult which is driven by gardening programs and glossy magazines. Garden should be a place that we share with nature. Um, there's really nothing wrong with having a tidy garden. I mean, I guess if you're saying by, certain landscaping type of techniques, yeah, it doesn't allow for, a natural sort of flora or a consistency of different species of plants to exist. The problem with that is you're going to have everything um you're going to have the perimeter of the building or house be a wildlife haven. And this just isn't referring to, the little hedgehogs. This is referring to different species of insects, reptiles, amphibians, and mammals that are going to cause a big problem. It's just you don't want them right specifically in front of your house or as your doormat. So, researchers at Nottingham Trent University are also investigating the relationship between badger and hedgehog populations, with evidence that the presence of badgers negatively affects the prickly creatures most abundant in the southwest of England and South Wales. Huh. Well, that's kind of the opposite where we were looking at earlier. Badgers prey on hedgehogs. There we go. And compete with them for food. Slightly. I wouldn't say worms are really that much of an issue for badgers. Who was it? Hmm. It sounds like one of those people that wants to prevent people from having the certain freedoms to do basic things to their houses, and in this case, yeah, it's saying housing developments.
Well, did
Okay.
it say put a trackway through it or something?
Um, the hedgehog highway, a
Yeah,
legal
through
requirement on new housing developments. I don't know how that would work. Like, um, I mean, I might understand maybe underpasses, but still, I don't know how you would.
but in a housing development, how can they guarantee the hedgehog is going to use it and only the hedgehog doesn't get eaten by the badger that's using it?
Well, that too,
Wouldn't that
but
be like a game trail?
yeah, it would, but it's like I mean, I'm thinking of, a neighborhood that has a sidewalk. It has several parking spaces, but
Maybe it's just green to green, so
well, I
they
get
never have to
yes.
walk onto the road.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. Maybe a giant bridge over to the other side. That's really expensive though. Anyway, I'll take a look at the hedgehogs considering this is what also taking place a bit earlier. Well, let's head back in time. So, from Sinus crested diapsid reptile from Middle Triassic shakes up feather evolution theories. Paleontologists have described a new genus and species of Triassic dipronosauromorph diapsid with striking integumentary appendages, which are neither feathers nor skin, based on two well preserved skeletons and associated specimens. Their findings demonstrate that feathers or hair like protrusions are not unique to birds and mammals. Um, okay, it wasn't hitting me for a second who we're talking about. Let's see. Tyrannosauromorphs. I do not focus specifically on this lineage of reptiles, but I have seen this peculiar species.
I've never even heard that word before.
This is an early distant relative of like the beginning of the Archosauromorph lineage. So, feathers and hair are examples of complex appendages on the outer bodies of vertebrate animals and have important functions such as forming insulation, aiding sensation, providing displays, and contributing to flight. Feathers and hair have their origins in stem lineages of birds and mammals, respectively. So, this seems to be Myrosora grauvogeli. I think back in the early Triassic. Um, Yeah, this animal was probably not much more than, what, 8 inches to 12 inches in length. They're pushing somewhere around 20 to 30 centimeters. It was relatively small and likely just preying on different species of insects at the time. So, there were certain early relatives of this group of diapsids that existed back in the very end of the Carboniferous period, especially the Pennsylvanian stage, around 304 million years ago, like with the Petrolacosaurus, which is one of the earliest species of reptiles to evolve. And it also seems that when this specific type of reptile evolved, the dinosaurs still hadn't quite evolved yet, but there were signs of their evolution being in place with certain ancestors to the dinosaurs, so different primitive archosauromorphs. However, the genetic toolkit for the development of these appendages is likely to have deeper roots among amniotes, the branch of animals that encompasses reptiles, birds, and mammals. A Triassic reptile species described by Dr. Stefan Spikeman from the Stadtliches Museum for Naturkunde, Stuttgart, and his colleagues had a distinctive crest of appendages up to oh, up to 15.3 centimeters or 6 inches long along its back. Um, I was talking about the people. So
The people had appendages
yeah,
that were 6 inches.
so maybe this is a slightly larger species. I wonder if I believe there are a few different species of these Tyrannosauromorphs that existed back in the early Triassic period. So this is during the first 8 million years of the Triassic. However, I would like to go a bit further back in time. Um, when it comes to okay, let's bring up a dinocephalian lineage of reptile. So, Estimenosuchus, Estemenn. Oh, he popped up. Does he look hideous, or he just looks like his own proto mammal sort of thing? So this is not a species of dinosaur. The dinosaurs had not evolved yet. This was also much further back into the Permian period. This was around 267 million years ago over in Russia. And Russia and also on the supercontinent Pangea had a wide variety of different species of reptiles as well as different types of proto mammals that existed during this time. So this lineage would not give rise to the mammals. It would die off later into the Permian period. However, this was after proto mammals like Dimetrodon went extinct. However, their descendants still remained. So Istomenosuchus, it seems to be, was a species of herbivore. So it was feeding on different species of ferns. Flowers had not evolved yet. Fruit had not evolved yet. In many cases, different types of seeds. But it does seem that this animal was likely feeding on different species of plants. It might have been omnivorous, but despite skull structure, it's not really closely related to anything today. It could weigh somewhere around 13, I say somewhere between 1,300 to 2,200 pounds, or somewhere in the midst of 600 kilograms to around 1,000 kilograms. So it's one of the largest species of dinocephalians, despite dino being in their name. They are not dinosaurs. They are their own lineage of reptiles. Um, they did have their own distinct or their own predators that they had to be concerned about. And yeah, that is the skull. It's very interesting in some cases. You could almost compare it to certain species of what is it? Distant relatives of hippos back in the Oligocene epoch, much later in time, somewhere around 30 million years ago, with the entelodonts. However, Entelodon still had a very different jaw structure. I wonder if I'm mixing it with somebody else. But despite its appearance, this is not a mammal and it is not a dinosaur either. What's another thing? It's also, I think, a bit of a debate as to this animal being warm or cold-blooded, but it was likely a species of cold-blooded animal. Also, due to the fact considering its hips were somewhat splayed out to the side, which is not a mammalian trait. It's also not a trait that you see in different species of dinosaurs, whose hips, like in mammals, were right under them. So, also help indicating that
His teeth are curved.
they were warm-blooded.
Look, they're curved.
Or you're saying that this, tends to indicate more of a carnivorous sort of a diet?
No, I was stating his bottom teeth are straight and his top teeth are curved this way.
Um, yeah, they are. I wonder if that's just how the fossil was, preserved, but yeah, that is quite strange. Or he just had a, physical issue, like, when he was born, but still quite a formidable, herbivore. Okay, so let's, keep going. Where were we? So named Myrasora gravelgelli, this strange creature lived in what is now Europe some 247 million years ago. Although the species had a superficially bird-like skull, I wouldn't consider it bird-like. It belonged to a group of diapsids called Drepanousauromorpha. It is interesting considering. Oh, I forgot. We're on the little lizard.
Yeah, you forgot
Wow.
what we were talking about.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up some larger creatures from slightly beforehand. So here's the lizard. He is a lizard. And here's his fossil. That is so well preserved. You have to be so delicate in making sure none of that is damaged, especially the back vertebrae, which is basically the elongated sail. It is interesting. You have different species of spinosaurs, different species of proto-mammals, different species of iguanodontids or um, ornithopods from the early Cretaceous period, as well as even to the late Cretaceous period with certain species of hadrosaurs that evolved elongated back vertebrae. And it's just a bit interesting as to all these different groups, despite being very distantly related to each other, evolving this trait. Not something I believe you really see in different species of marine reptiles, however. Two well preserved skeletons and 80 specimens with isolated appendages and preserved soft tissues of Myrasora grauvogelii were found in northeastern France in the 1930s, but remained unidentified until further preparation was undertaken in recent years. This allowed the crests and skeletal remains to be associated to each other.
How many of these animals do they have that no one's ever even looked at?
Yeah, it sounds like quite a few. The tissues preserved within the appendages contain melanosomes, pigment producing cells found in skin, hair, and feathers that are more similar to those seen in feathers than in reptilian skin or mammalian hair, although they lack the typical branching patterns seen in feathers. That is interesting. And what's almost not surprising is about that is some of the earliest dinosaurs were going to evolve within a few million years' time. And but more specifically, different species of primitive archosauromorphs. So that's very astounding. Okay. So there is another creature I'd like to bring up from the Permian period, which was likely a carnivore of the Eotimanosuchus. So Eotitanosuchus. So Eotitan. Oh, he popped up. This is a distant relative of different, or the carnivore that we're going to bring up. Is a distant relative of the different species of Gorgonopsians that would evolve slightly later into the Permian period. However, this animal on the right specifically was a predator likely of the Esteminosuchus. But this specific animal likely could still weigh somewhere around 800 to 1,300 pounds, or pushing somewhere between 350 kilograms to around 600 kilograms. So likely the herbivore on the right weighed over a ton, pushing around 2,200 pounds or around 1,000 kilograms.
On the right.
Well, I meant the left on the first picture. Yeah, so this is the Esteminosuchus on the left.
That's that weird thing, right?
Yes. It is interesting. I think many people, when they think of some of the freakiest animals to evolve, um, they will try to depict some species of dinosaur. But at least in my opinion, some of the oddest I think are from the Permian. Now, there are certain species of,
You mean not dinosaur?
yeah, proto mammals or certain species of reptiles. There are certain dinosaurs I would say that can be a bit freaky in some instances. I think certain species of ceratopsians can be quite odd in their skull structures, and certain species of theropods. You could even say sauropods, despite how small their skull structures are. Um. Okay, so back to the
They like
Eotitanosuchus.
these guys fighting.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's a really good depiction. Kind of looks like a drawing. I mean, it could be from recently, but it resembles certain ones from like the 1980s, like with Dr. Robert T. Bacher's, the paleontologist who brought back the theory that dinosaurs were warm-blooded, feathered, intelligent, nimble, or speedy creatures. Along with the paleontologist John Ostrom. But, in this case, it is interesting considering Eotitanosuchus is a member of the Eotitanosuchidae lineage of possibly proto-mammals, but it doesn't seem to be a true Gorgonopsian. And more specifically, it seems to be a Barnocephalian, um, or a Barnosaurian, which is interesting. And no, it's not a dinosaur. This is somewhere around 35 million. Hold on a second. I say around possibly 25 to 30 million years before the dinosaurs would first evolve. But in this case, also both of these animals have been discovered in Permian Russia.
Wait, the proto mammal is
Um,
that old?
that could be a reptile. He's definitely a proto mammal.
Oh, him.
Yeah, but he's likely a reptile. Also, due to how his hips are splayed out to the side. They're both around 267 million years old.
Well, you said he was an herbivore.
Did I just say carnivore?
No, but
I think I said earlier it could be omnivorous, but for the most part, seems to be he might have been likely feeding on different species of ferns.
I just see those teeth, and it's like,
Yeah, he does. It does have a bit of a carnivorous appeal to him. I might do. I mean, I'll definitely take a further depth into these guys, see whether or not we've obtained a bit more knowledge into specifically like what S. Demonosuchus would have been feeding on. It does look like Eo Titanosuchus was feeding on S. Demonosuchus. Um, so also it seems that the Eo Titanosuchus was larger than the Gorgonopsians, but likely a bit slower in locomotion. Doesn't seem to be as quick. So these findings suggest that such complex appendages already evolved among reptiles before the origin of birds and their closest relatives, which may offer new insights into the origin of feathers and hair. Considering the function of the appendages seen in Myrosora grauwogeli, we ruled out rules in flight or camouflage and instead suggest a possible role in visual communication, signaling, or predator deterrence. Huh. Well, that is interesting. I mean, I would suggest for the flight if it doesn't look like it really even has two separate appendages, but um also I don't think there's really a group of animals that we know of that would have that type of an ability to give them powered flight. Camouflage, I found that or I find this a bit odd. Um that they're ruling out camouflage in general. Like they already found um pigments or colored or preserved pigment that would show that these animals are would be a distinct color from the natural, likely green surroundings. This animal's likely going to be hiding in different dense vegetation areas to avoid some of the earlier archosauromorphs in the region or certain other reptiles that we eat it for a snack. I just find that odd. It doesn't seem like there's any evidence to say they're that, like, no to that. Um, but visual communication, predator deterrence, yeah, that seems to make sense. I just think it would give it camouflage. Okay. Let's head forward in time to another part of the world. By the way, where was this? France. Okay. So, newsnationnow.com. Nearly 6,000 rare rainbow trout rescued after getting stranded in California Creek. Hmm.
I wonder how dirty that water is.
Yeah, I wonder too. Um, okay, so thousands of native Eagle Lake rainbow trout were rescued by California wildlife officials this spring after unseasonably warm weather and low snowpack left the fish stranded in Northern California Creek, according
Oh,
to the
were they rescued
California.
or fish fried?
Yeah. Well, what is not surprising is that California, Oregon, Washington, much of the western states in the US did have a low snowfall and a quite warm winter compared to other years, which is odd considering the year before or yeah, I believe the year before, Colorado had an immense snowpack, but I'm also talking about a separate state. I don't know what occurred in California. Actually, I believe the year before or the year before that, at least over in Southern California, there was an immense snowpack that occurred. But that's that's only me referencing one part of the state. So, um, this is odd. But what I am shocked by is that they ended up being stranded in supposedly a creek. Now, there are several dams over in California. Granted, you could say there's several dams in many of the states that have caused different cutoffs in natural fish migrations. And it's not just the United States, several countries. But um, let's keep going. The emergency operation conducted over 4 days in March and April resulted in approximately 5,800 adult trout being returned to Eagle Lake from Pine Creek, the lake's primary tributary. Colorado Department of Parks. No, what? Oh, Fish and Wildlife. Some states it's like Montana Game and Fish, and then it's like well, what, Alaska? No, that's Alaska Fish and Game too. Some states are Parks and Wildlife, some are Fish and Game, some are Fish and Wildlife. Okay, so the rescue effort marked the largest such operation in more than a decade, involved more than 25 Colorado Department of Fish and Wildlife biologists, hatchery staff, and community volunteers. These fish are long lived,
Wait,
so
did
there's
you
a
say
very.
hatchery staff?
Did I not? Yeah, hatchery staff. This has actually occurred for many different reintroduction efforts or like restoring population for different species of fish around the United States, especially over in different parts of the Midwest, like Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. So these fish are long lived, so there's a very good chance that fish return to the lake could return in subsequent years to spawn again, said Paul Devine, Colorado Department of Fish and Wildlife's district fisheries biologist for Lassen and Moda counties. And it's also putting adult sized fish back in the lake that could be enjoyed by anglers to catch as well. The trout, which range from 9 to 24 inches long, I think this is pushing somewhere around 60 centimeters, and weighed as much as 5 pounds or a little over 2 kilograms, were rescued using backpack electrofishing units, block nets, and dip nets. According to California Department of Fish and Wildlife, unusually warm temperatures in February and March accelerated snowmelt runoff into Pine Creek, triggering an early spawning run for the trout. However, snowpack levels were already low and quickly diminished, leaving thousands of fish vulnerable to becoming trapped in shrinking pools of water. Strange. Early lake rainbow trout are found only in Eagle
That
Lake
one
and
looks like
Pine
it's
Creek.
smiling.
Yeah, it does. Um, they're glad they're finally moving.
Somebody's gonna eat him.
Yeah, he looks pretty healthy. Certain fish, you have to have it where it shoots them out of the water, so it activates their nerves. So, making them endemic to the region, officials say. The species also plays a major role in California's hatchery system, with fish stocked in recreational waters across the state from Mata County to San Diego County. So these are these Eagle Lake rainbow trout. They swim in Pine Creek. So before the rescue effort, California Department of Fish and Wildlife said it had already met spawning goals by collecting 1.3 million fertilized eggs from 320 pairs of trout. Whoa. Wow, that's a lot. That's quite a few eggs. About 170,000 juvenile fish will eventually be returned to Eagle Lake to help sustain the fishery. But then when you think of caviar, and then you're not really shocked. Still, though, it sounds like an immense amount, especially since they're fertile. Colorado, California Department of Fish and Wildlife records show trout rescues in Pine Creek date back to 1959, but officials say conditions have become increasingly extreme in recent years. Yeah, I'm really surprised. Pine Creek has always been unpredictable, but we're seeing more extremes over the last 10 years. That's funny. California Department of Fish and Wildlife
Come on, we both know you wanna say Colorado.
noted Pine Creek has dried up 3 times in the past decade, preventing trout from reaching their spawning grounds altogether. This year's spawning operations were also the earliest recorded in 40 years. Whoa, that's interesting. Wonder where that occurred. Eagle Lake is scheduled to reopen to trout fishing Saturday with a 2 fish daily limit and a 4 fish possession limit. I'm not sure if you can eat them or you just release. 2 fish daily limit. I'm guessing 4 fish possession. That sounds like you can eat them.
How do you have a
Oh,
2 fish daily limit if there's a 4 fish possession limit? What?
yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it really is just catch and release. Oh well. Thanks for joining. And from Prehistoric to Present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Happy International Ankylosaur Day. And remember, nothing is better than all animals all the time. And we are streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick.